Well, hello. I hope you're doing well this weekend. My name is Aaron. I'm one of the teaching pastors here, and I'm just so grateful for this opportunity that we have to be together. And if you've been traveling with us over the last couple of weekends, you know that Pastor Jeff has been teaching from his living room. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not in my living room. And I have 5 reasons why I'm not. And their names are Remy and Piper. Actually, I'll just save you all the details. But I'm not in my living room because I am a father of 5. And I love my kids. They're fantastic, I assure you. But the idea of trying to talk for 30 minutes straight with them being completely silent, just not realistic. And so I'm coming to you from another location on the grounds of the East Paris campus. If you've ever been there, you kind of come in the driveway, there's a pond in front of you, and then there's a tennis court on the left, and this little building next to the tennis court is called the Hut. And so I am coming to you from the Hut. And I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to open the scriptures with you for part 2 of a series we're calling The Way of the Wise. And as we begin, I have a question for you, and it's this. What type of person are you? I mean, are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? Are you type A or are you... What is the opposite of type A anyways? I've never heard anybody called type B, and maybe the best way to think of it is like this picture right here. You know, type A people, there you are. Everybody else in the world, yeah. Okay, so again, what type of person are you? Maybe you're into those BuzzFeed quizzes, you know, like what Disney princess are you? Or what character in Star Wars would you be? Or perhaps you're into the personality profiles, you know, like the DISC test or Myers-Briggs. And if you're wondering about me, well, you know, I'm like a introverted type A, Luke Skywalker, high I, INFP on the Myers-Briggs. So that's me. But I'm wondering, what type of person are you? And you might be wondering, why in the world are we talking about this? What does this have to do with anything? So we are in a series called The Way of the Wise, and we're studying the book of Proverbs. Now, if you're unfamiliar, kind of new to the Bible, here's where Proverbs is. It's in the Old Testament. That's the older part of our Bible. Sometimes we call it the Jewish Scripture. So the book of Proverbs, like dead in the middle. And these are wise sayings, Proverbs, collected by King Solomon for the Jewish people. And if you've been reading along with us in the Wisdom Challenge, this deal where we're asking everybody in the whole church to read through the book of Proverbs, whatever chapter it is of the day of the month, read that chapter and then write down one proverb that kind of sticks with you, share it with people in your life. If you've been doing this, you've probably picked up on some themes, some reoccurring words. And so when I ask you, what type of person are you? There are types of people that show up in the book of Proverbs over and over again. And here's 2 of the main ones right here. The wise person and the fool. This probably sounds familiar to those of you who've been reading through. Now, the wise person is that person that consistently makes good decisions that lead to better outcomes in life. Decisions that lead to financial stability and healthy relationships and growing faith. And the fool, well, that's the opposite person. It's the person who consistently makes poor decisions that lead to negative outcomes in life. And so back to the question I asked you, what type of person are you? Would you say I'm wise, or would you say I'm a fool? Now, I'm guessing that nobody is going, thank goodness we're talking about this, because I am such a fool. Like all the time, 100%, grade A fool. Thank you for finally bringing this up because I need help. That's probably not what you're saying. And so what do we do with this? Well, here's the deal. As we looked last week at Pastor Jeff's message, one of the key themes in the book of Proverbs is this idea of a path or the way. And Andy Stanley, a pastor down in Georgia, puts it this way, that direction determines destination. That the choices I'm making today are shaping the person that I'm becoming. And so maybe a better question to ask is, what path are you on? Like, where are you headed? What direction are you moving? Are you becoming more of a wise person or more of a fool? Are you on the path of the wise or are you on the path of the fool? I just think this is such an important question for us to wrestle with today, because the decisions that we make in this season are shaping who we will be in the future. And so what I want to do today is just spend some time with these two characters and just look at the characteristics that describe them. And I just got to tell you that one of the key things about the wise and the fool it really comes down to this, is whether or not you listen. Whether or not you listen to feedback and criticism and correction, and whether or not you're teachable. And so let's jump in, let's spend some time with these two characters. And I thought it would be good to start with the fool. So here we go. First conversation, the first character we're going to look at, the fool. So let's jump in. First proverb we're going to look at here, the wise are cautious and avoid danger, but fools plunge ahead with reckless confidence. It's like there's a type of person who's growing in wisdom, who's deliberate, who's careful, who's cautious, and avoids trouble. And then there's another type of person, and that is a fool who just plunges ahead with reckless confidence. Reckless confidence. It's this kind of deal where you just go, yeah, I've got this. I can handle this. I can manage this. Watch this. And I think what this is it's really just pride. And when you try to have a conversation with somebody that's growing in foolishness, who's becoming more and more of a fool, and you try to warn them like, hey, I'm not sure that's a good idea, or, hey, I'm not sure that she's good for you. You hear this kind of language and, yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. I got this. I can handle this. I can manage this. And so what I want to do as we talk about what the fool looks like and what it feels like to be growing in foolishness, I want to give you a couple phrases that will serve as a warning sign to let you know if you are headed on the path of the fool. And the first of these phrases just right here, I've got this. It's this reckless confidence. I got this, I can handle this, I can manage it, I'm strong enough, I'm smart enough, whatever it looks like in your life. But it's when somebody kind of goes, hey, I'm not sure this is a great idea. If you find yourself saying, yeah, whatever, I've got this, I can handle this, that should serve as a warning sign that you might be on the path of the fool. You might be in danger of becoming more and more of a fool in your life. And you might be thinking like, okay, why would a person do this? Why would a person just kind of disregard and ignore the advice of friends? Well, let's look at another proverb. A fool finds pleasure in wicked schemes, but a person of understanding delights in wisdom. A fool finds pleasure in wicked schemes. Another translation puts it like this. Doing wrong is fun for a fool. Doing wrong is fun for a fool. It's like, why are you doing this? Because it's fun. Because it's a good time. Because it's a blast. It's a riot. Because it's fun. And you try to ask somebody a question like, why are you watching that show? It's kind of sketchy. It's hilarious. It's so entertaining. It's fun to watch. It's like, why do we enjoy talking about people when they're not around? Why do we enjoy telling stories about somebody that makes everybody laugh when they're not in the room? Because it's fun. You're telling me that you played Call of Duty Warzone for 47 out of 48 hours on the weekend. Yeah, have you played the game? It's an absolute riot. It's fun. Hey, he's not your husband. You should be careful in this relationship. Yeah, but he makes me feel alive. He's so much fun to be around. It's fun. It's a good time. It's a blast. You see, for somebody who's growing in foolishness, there's this focus on immediate fun right now over the future. Fun right now takes precedent over the future. And so a warning phrase to look out for in your life is simply this right here. Who cares? It's fun. When your parents, when a friend try to point out to you, hey, this might not be wise. This could be dangerous. Like, yeah, who cares? I'm having fun. When you begin to recognize that choosing fun right now is trumping your future, you might be on the path of the fool. And so right about now, some of us are starting to feel a little uncomfortable going, okay, maybe there's a few areas of my life where I might be taking the first steps on the path of the fool. Well, let me ask you, can you handle one more? Because there's another phrase that's very important that should serve as a warning sign that you might be on the path of the fool, and it's this phrase right here. This time will be different. This time is gonna be different. You ever use this phrase? You ever hear it in your friends? It's like, hey, you know what happened the last time you hung out with them? Yeah, but this time it's going to be different. Yeah, and you know what happened last time that you stayed up really late watching TV? You ended up watching something that you had no business watching. Yeah, but this time it's going to be different. Hey, last time we made a big purchase with the credit card. I mean, we racked up debt. We were paying it off for months and paid a bunch of interest. Yeah, but this time it's going to be different. Hey, last time that you dated somebody like him, you know how it went. Yeah, but this time it's going to be different. It's this phrase that we use that should serve as a warning sign. It's what we tell ourselves. It's how we rationalize with our friends and our family. But the book of Proverbs gives us a very vivid image for what everybody else is seeing when we use that phrase. And it's right here, Proverbs 26:11. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Now, I wasn't sure if this would be perfectly clear, so I brought a picture along. No, I didn't. That would be gross. But this right here is like a perfect example of a proverb. It's got truth that's so condensed and just so compact that it just hits you. It's like a punch in the gut. It just hits you. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. It's like, this time it's going to be different. Yeah, no, it's not. You're just returning to that same old mess. And we tell ourselves and we rationalize, but the truth is we're just returning to that same old mess. And so I just wonder, as we talk about these three phrases that kind of serve as a warning sign that you might be headed down the path of a fool, that you might be in some area of your life growing more and more foolish. Do any of these resonate? Any of these sound familiar? Do you recognize any of these phrases in your own thinking or just things that you've recently said? If so, I need you to see something. Another proverb here from chapter 14, the wise woman builds her house, but with her own hands, the foolish one tears hers down. Got an image here of a guy building a house, and it's like the wise woman, the wise person, they build their house. It's like decision after decision. It's like pounding nails into the frame. You're building your life. You're building your family, you're building your character, you're building your financial well-being, you're building your future. And there's a second image here of tearing into a house. And the proverb says, with her own hands, she tears down her house. It's like, who made that mess? I did. And I'm saying it's possible that the biggest wrecking ball to your finances, to your character, to your marriage just might be you. And so these two images side by side, building your house, tearing down your house. I got to ask you a question. Last week, were you building or were you tearing down? The way that you spent your time. Were you building or were you tearing down? The way that you invested your resources, the way that you spent your money, building, tearing down. Conversations that you had with other people, stuff that you posted on Facebook or Instagram or whatever platform you use. Were you building or were you tearing down? Stuff that you were watching, looking at. Are you building your marriage, your future marriage, or are you tearing it down? All I'm saying is that it is possible that decision by decision that you can build a house. You can build your life. You can build your future, but it's also possible to dismantle your life one decision at a time. This is what the path of the fool looks like, or maybe more accurately, these are the consequences of the path of the fool. And when a friend, when a spouse, somebody from your small group says, hey, can we talk about this? The fool responds with, yeah, whatever. Just not even listening. Because they're not teachable. And so I just got to ask you, that's not you, right? That hasn't been you in this season. There's not some area of your life where you're progressing along the path of the fool. Because if it is, listen, it's not too late to turn around. There is another path. There is another way. And so let's turn now to the second character, the second type of person in the Proverbs, and that is the wise. And what we've already learned about the wise person is that they build their life, that they make consistently good choices that lead to better outcomes in their life, healthy relationships, stable finances, peaceful home, a career, a lasting legacy, a deepening faith. These are the outcomes, the results of the path of wisdom. And that's the kind of person I want to be. And it's the kind of person that you want to be too. And so how do you get there? How do you become a wise person? Do you have to have a certain level of intelligence? Is it genetic? You need a certain level of IQ in order to be wise? I don't think it is. Do you have to have great parents? Did you need to come from a good family in order to be wise? Not necessarily. I don't even think that you have to be older. You don't have to have gray hair to be a wise person. And so what is it? Well, let's look at one more proverb here from chapter 15. Whoever heeds life-giving correction will be at home among the wise. The way to become wise is through heeding, listening to, and responding to life-giving correction, to instruction, to criticism, to feedback, to life-giving correction. And so how do you become wise? Listen, it's not always having the right answer. It's not always making the right decision every single time. It really comes down to this: heeding life-giving correction. It's about listening. It's about being teachable. And so as we talked about the fool, we talked about 3 warning signs. Are there 3 things to describe the wise person? The answer is no. This is it. This is it. Heeding life-giving correction, becoming a teachable person, that is the one marker of a wise person. In fact, Proverbs just continues to double down on this idea. Look at this right here. Do not rebuke mockers, or they will hate you. And in the book of Proverbs, a mocker, or some translations call it the scoffer, that's like, one pastor put it this way, that's a fool on steroids. That's like the next level of fool. Where, with a fool, you say, hey, you might want to be careful with that. And the response is, yeah, whatever. And they're just not listening. With the mocker, it's like, how dare you tell me what to do? How dare you tell me how to live my life? You try to correct a mocker and they're going to hate you. It's like, don't waste your time trying to correct somebody who's a mocker. But a wise person, rebuke the wise and they will love you. That's interesting. Rebuke the wise. Correct a wise person and they will love you. Really? I just love it when you tell me how wrong I am. It's like, what? So as I've been reflecting on this proverb over the last couple weeks, and I do mean weeks because something that Pastor Jeff and I have been doing in preparation for this series is like reading the book of Proverbs over and over again. And so I've bumped into this proverb a couple times now. And something I've realized is this: there have been a handful of life-giving correction kinds of conversations in my life that have absolutely changed the direction of my life. I mean, sent me in a different direction. I think back to a conversation I had when I was young with my uncle, who was my boss at the time at the family well drilling business. I remember him handing me a broom and going, "I'm not paying you to stand around, get to work." And I learned something that day. He corrected me. I learned something about laziness and hard work. Or I remember another conversation with a guy I went to college with freshman year, and he pulled me aside and he talked to me about this girl I was pursuing. And basically he told me, "Look, you have no business being in that relationship." And I listened to him. And that life-giving correction sent my life in a different direction, a better direction. I think about a time when I was in early high school and I was at my youth pastor's house for youth group. And we were gathered in the upstairs somewhere, and you're not going to believe this, but I was the funny guy in high school, and so I was telling stories, and everybody was laughing, and on this particular night, I was telling a story about my dad. And I'll be honest, I was mocking him, and I was calling him the old man. It was this phrase that I'd gotten in the habit of using for him. And what I didn't know is that my dad had just arrived to pick me up and take me home, and so he heard the whole thing. And I was being disrespectful. I was being rude. I was mocking him, trying to get a laugh out of it. And so we had a conversation on the way home. And I remember my dad saying to me, basically, "I'm not going to be disrespected like that. And I work hard to provide for my family, and I'm constantly there for you. And so I'm not going to tolerate that kind of disrespect." And in that moment, I had a decision to make. And it was like one of those crossroad moments, because here I was as a young teenager with my dad telling me, "You got to respect me." And when you're a young teenager, I mean, you're trying to create independence, you're trying to decide who you are, set your own values. And so one path here was "yeah, whatever, Dad." And it would be the path where I shut the door on his voice and kind of go my own way. And can I tell you how grateful I am that I did not choose that path, that in that moment, I decided to be teachable. And I'm so grateful that I did, because my dad's influence, his voice in my life through the rest of my high school career was just huge. He had such a powerful impact on my life. I mean, his influence on me, it made me a better man. I believe it's made me a better husband, a father, made me a better pastor. And so I'm just so grateful that in that moment, I chose to be teachable, to heed life-giving correction. And I just wonder, do you have conversations like that? Do you have memories of life-giving correction where your life took a different direction because somebody sat you down and said, "Listen, we need to talk." And you chose in that moment to listen and to be teachable. I guess all I'm saying is that this is about a posture of the heart that's open to receiving feedback and criticism, open to being teachable. This is about humility. And I just think this is so important, even right now, because I believe that there is a conversation ahead of each one of us, a pivotal conversation, where somebody's going to sit us down and say, "Hey, I need to talk." And it's going to be one of those pivotal moments in our lives where it's a crossroads. We could go one or two ways. We could go down the path of the fool or the path of the wise. And it all depends on our humility and the posture of our heart. And I don't know about you, but I want to be ready for that moment. And so I want to ask you to do something this week to help each of us grow in humility, in teachability, and just develop a heart that's open to hear. I want to ask you, whenever somebody gives you advice, whenever somebody corrects you, whenever somebody criticizes you this week, I want you to answer with two words, and here they are. Thank you. Just simply respond with thank you. And so when you get an email this week from your boss going, "Hey, can we talk?" And you end up in a conversation where he says, listen, in those Zoom meetings, I need you to do less talking and more listening. I need you to give less of your ideas, and I need you to start asking more questions. You're dominating the conversation. I need you to answer with 2 words. Thank you. And when your mom sits you down and lectures you again about screen time, I need you to respond with 2 words. Thank you. And when your spouse says, listen, should we really be buying this right now? I mean, maybe we should wait till like June or July when things are a little more normal. I want you to respond with 2 words. Thank you. And when somebody from your small group calls up because they're concerned about the drinking, they're concerned about the relationship or whatever it is, I want you to respond with 2 words. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to tell me this. Thank you for having the courage to have this conversation. Listen, I'm not enjoying hearing this, but thank you for calling me on this. Because this is about developing a heart posture that is receptive. It's about developing humility because, again, the key difference between the path of the fool and the path of the wise is teachability. That's it. That's the bottom line. You know, Jesus, he was a student of the Proverbs. He knew the Proverbs. I think he read the Proverbs. He quoted the Proverbs in his teaching. Some of the themes that you find in the book of Proverbs, they're all over the place in the teachings of Jesus. And so as we wrap up today, I want to bring you to this scene on a hillside, the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus is teaching this large crowd. If you're familiar with the scriptures, this scene is called the Sermon on the Mount, and maybe you know what that is. But basically the idea is he's been teaching a large crowd for like 3 chapters. It's not a short sermon. And when he gets to the end, well, here's what he says. He says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And you hear the themes of Proverbs in here. It's about hearing, listening, teachability, building, wisdom. If you listen to my words and you put them into practice, if you heed my life-giving correction, if you choose to be teachable as I instruct you, you're going to be like somebody who builds their life on bedrock. And then he goes on, he says, the rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. And he's describing a storm. And as I think about what we're experiencing right now, we are living through a global pandemic. I mean, this is crazy. And we're staying at home to keep ourselves and the people that we love healthy and safe. Meanwhile, our economy is just falling apart. We are living through a major storm. And depending on who you are and where you work or what you used to do, this might be impacting you at a higher level than maybe others. But for some of us, this could be the most difficult season of life that we ever walk through. This is a storm. And Jesus says, listen, if you heed my teachings, if you listen to my life-giving correction, it's like building your life on bedrock, and I'm telling you, you are going to make it through this storm. And so he's presenting this path of wisdom, but then he presents another option. He says, everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice, whatever, is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And we get the same storm imagery. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. It's like, ignore my teachings, and this storm could take you out. And so Jesus is on this hillside, giving this long sermon, like 3 chapters long. And then it's like, so what are you going to do? Everybody heard the same sermon. Not everybody had the same response. 2 paths, the wise and the fool. 2 paths, 1 question. Are you teachable? Question for you as we wrap up here. What type of person are you? Wise person? Foolish person? Are you on the path of wisdom? Are you on the path of the fool? Listen, my prayer for you this week is that you would choose to listen. That when someone offers you life-giving correction, that you would say, thank you. Because there's two paths and one question. Are you teachable? Thanks so much for joining us this week, and look forward to gathering again next week for part 3 of The Way of the Wise.